Hey, Terrence, thanks for taking my call again. Um, there's some breaking news, not really breaking news because this happened a few days ago, um, which I really wanted to get your reaction on. It's about the report of the investigations done by the government of La Republique du Cameroun on the murders that took place in Ngarbuh on February 14, 2020. Can I get a quick? Have you read it?
Yes, I've read the report.
Yeah, can you give me a very quick response to it, please?
Yes, I don't think there is anything new in the report that will impress Amazonians specifically and honest citizens around the world who have been paying attention to the crimes of the Yaoundé regime in Amazonia. Secondly, I think this is actually a confession on two fronts. First, even though it's not the first confession of its kind, they did confess to killing mothers and their babies in North Cameroon a few years ago after there was irrefutable evidence that the crime wasn't committed in Mali, as the communication minister at the time claimed. But this was a direct confession of the role of their army in the execution or the slaughter of women, some of whom were pregnant, and infants. The second is that they have confessed that they do use and sponsor vigilante groups in Amazonia to kill other Amazonians and to burn their homes. This is really not the first time they've done it. I think you did a report in Womb, in which they actually filmed themselves doing this. But this is a confession coming from the highest office of the Cameroonese government. The third aspect of this is one which is rather kind of personal.
Mm-hmm.
Because it goes to it's a back to the future scenario of sorts, because the individual who led this slaughter of women and children, and let us identify him by name. His name is Charles Eric Nyangono Z. He's a graduate of the Saint Cyr French military school, the same military school that General Semenge attended. General Semenge that you recently showed almost boasting about chopping off the heads of fellow Africans in the French campaign against the Cameroonese independentists.
Yeah,
right?
in the 50s and 60s, yes.
In the 50s and 60s. So there is sort of symmetry of brutality, kind of 50 years apart, in terms of the military background of General Semenge and this army guy who led this expedition, Nyangono Z, And I think in my mind, it is a testimony to the French roots of the continuous evil in the slaughter of innocent Africans.
No, I think what you demonstrated is a testimony of the training they get.
And that's what I'm saying. It's a testimony, the evil that is happening in Amazonia, and that took place in French Cameroon under the leadership of Semenge, of General Semenge.
Mm-hmm.
Demonstrates the deep French roots of the slaughter of defenseless Africa by other Africans trained for that purpose by French, and specifically at this Saint Cyr military academy in France. So those are the observations I want to make about this confession that was published from the highest level of the Cameroonese government.
Well, let me ask you this. You know, this is not the first report that Cameroon is putting out. I think shortly after that event, they did put out a very different report. In fact, they did not even agree that they even were in the locality. So, wasn't that strange?
Well, and that's why I call it a confession of a criminal who had been presented with irrefutable proof that we have evidence of you committing this crime. Human Rights Watch had come out with a report, and I think the United Nations may have also come out with a report.
Yeah, the United Nations report was the main report, yes.
Yes, and what I can tell you is that this Cameroonese report basically was a copy of the United Nations report, and all they added were the names that we did not know, or that they were trying to shield from public. The names of the people who led this campaign of execution of kids and women.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think the gruesomeness of the crime, especially because of the nature of the victims. You know, you had pregnant women there, you had mostly women, you had children. I think you had like 8 members of a family.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that is what became one straw too many. And that's why you saw the reaction from specifically the French president, who essentially ordered BIA to carry out an investigation, because we know that after the massacre, as you just mentioned, the Minister of Communication, Mr. Sadi, came out and rubbished everything and talked about the values and valor of the Republican Army. So obviously nobody bought that, and even the French themselves decided that they have to do something, because we had French politicians starting to invoke genocide. And so I think what happened, this confession was forced upon them by international pressure, and specifically international pressure, which the French, Macron, submitted to and instructed BIA to eventually publish this confession that is published.
There's something you said which I want to see if you reconsider. You said that the straw, I think you said something to the effect that this was one straw too many, and which is what prompted this reaction. I think it was more because the United Nations agents were there and captured the whole thing. I think that is more what I think that's where, because Africans have reported even more gruesome situations. This is not the first time. This is what these soldiers did in Ngarbuh is what they've been doing in Ambazonia from day one. From day one, when the duo in Manthe, the senior duo in Manthe went on radio and named certain counties, villages in Mangu to evacuate their villages, and that is and they went and then burned down those villages, and they burned down Mami Api, Grandma Api. You remember some of those names?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think our memories can be very short, especially when we are confronted with this trauma. There's so much happening that we may tend to forget our recent history. The SDO of Manu, Joseph Umde, I think that's his name in French, sent out a communique on December 1st, I believe, 2017, listing those localities and asking the inhabitants of those localities to leave before the army gets in. Otherwise, they would be considered as terrorists or those advocating terrorism. But that came a day after Mr. Paul Biya arriving from a France-Afrique summit
Now, let me call, it wasn't France-Afrique Summit. It was the summit to stop African youth from going to Europe and dying in the Mediterranean. Wasn't it ironic?
Well, I consider it a France-Afrique summit because Biya attends all the summits where the French are present, where Macron is present, where his French masters are present.
Yes, he attends those, and also let me just interject. He attends those, and also and also attend conferences where white people are present, where Europeans are present, where the Westerners are present, including the Chinese. Biya does not attend any meetings where it's all Africans.
No, he's a perfect exemplification, even by his own acknowledgement of being, the blue-eyed boy, as they say, But going back to the chronology of events, which you alluded to, the day before, the Manu SDO sent out this communique essentially at the airport in Yaoundé, declared war on the Ambazonian people. That's when it all began.
Yes.
They had previously killed Ambazonians who had held out peace plans on September 22nd and October 1, and this time, they went on a war footing and invaded Manu. But it was at that point that the Ambazonian resistance started. And unfortunately for them, the Manu Tigers apparently were ready and waiting for them and gave them a battle. And almost 4 years later, 3 years later, here we are.
Let me bring you back to that report. On that report, they cited what I would call field hands. They cited field hands for being responsible for the mission for the mission that they were sent to go and do. And I know you just talked about Biya returning from the international conference on African youth unemployment in Abidjan, declaring war, and then the following day, the SDO of Manu, did some of the things that he did, which you just described. Now, in this massacre where they were caught, they have assigned the responsibility more to the field hands, the troops on the ground, and the vigilantes that they've recruited, the Bororo vigilantes that they've recruited. Do you think the responsibility for that murder, for that massacre, should end with those field hands?
No, it shouldn't end with those field hands. And as I said at the beginning, there's really nothing new here. What needs to be established, and what we can learn from this confession, forced by international pressure, is what must we do? What can we do? I know the Ambazonian people are doing the best to defend themselves, right? Mm-hmm. But what can the rest of the world do to prevent this from happening again? I know that there are efforts to get an independent international fact-finding mission for Cameroon so that we establish the chain of command of the atrocities that have been committed in Cameroon since the beginning of this conflict. It cannot end, as Cameroon would like us to believe, with these field hands, as you call them. We need to find the ultimate individuals responsible in the chain of command, from the presidency down to the surgeons on the ground. And it is only through an international fact-finding mission, which I know a lot of Ambazonians and Americans are working on, that this can be established.
Now, just following up on this independent investigation that you're talking about, you did mention at the top of this show that French politicians talked about genocide in Ambazonia, and it was supported. I didn't hear any voices denying that there was genocide after Ngarbuh. Now, do you send the genocidaire, the perpetrators of that genocide, to go and investigate themselves and then come and report? And you and I are now talking about the report of genocidaires. Is it fair to the situation?
Well, what we need to understand here is that the criminal was forced to confess. You know, the back was against the wall. He had been forced to confess. And, you know, how did this happen really? You know, so this crime happened on the 14th of February, 14th, 15th of February, right?
On the 14th, yes. On Valentine's Day.
Yes. And a week later, on the 22nd of February, Saturday, at the Paris International Agricultural Show, a Cameroonese activist confronted Emmanuel Macron, the French president, about Ngarbuh, and he specifically used the word genocide in reference to what was happening in Amazonia.
Yes.
And this is what Macron replied. I will try to quote him. I am going to call President Paul Biya next week, and we are going to put as much pressure as possible to bring an end to this situation. So it's not the genocide wanting to or willing to go and investigate his crime. There was pressure that not only the Cameroonese felt, but their sponsors, the French. Macron made this statement under duress because you had French parliamentarians talking about genocide. He had just been confronted by a Cameroonese activist talking about genocide, and he revealed that I am really in charge of Cameroon. I'm going to call this person next week and make sure that we get to the bottom of this. And Biya followed his instructions. What was also revealed in that exchange between the Cameroonese activist and the French president was something else he said in regards to the Cameroonese opposition leader.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to come and say that. Yes.
Yes, he did say that. And again, this just exposes the absolute control that France has over events in Cameroon and over the conduct of the Cameroonese government, which tells us that if they really want to stop the genocide in Amazonia, the massacre in Amazonia, they can't do it. This is what he said, that he had demanded the release of opposition leader Maurice Kamto and made Biya's attendance at the conference, which was held in Lyon, I believe in October, conditional on the execution of that demand. So he made a demand that Paul Biya must release Maurice Kamto and that his entrance into France to attend that conference in Lyon was conditional on the execution of this demand. And Paul Biya did exactly as he was told. Right?
Yes, he did.
And which tells us that if Macron is serious, he can make a demand of Paul Biya to stop slaughtering Amazonian women and children. But he chooses not to.
Yes.
It is more important for him that, they release Kamto than to stop what others have qualified as a genocide that is unfolding in Amazonia. That speaks for itself.
Since you're talking about the role of the French, I also want to say that it's been documented that the fake federation that Southern Cameroon used to have was abolished on the instructions of France because they wanted to start exploiting the resources of Amazonia. So that's not the first time. And you also remember that at the top of this struggle, I think in early 2017, the French embassy in Yaoundé issued a statement that this struggle will be resolved in Cameroon and nowhere else. So I don't know how else you can demonstrate that France is the mastermind of all of what's going on in Ambazonia today.
No, I mean, I think France is, let's go back to using the words that was thrown around during the colonial period. It's metropolitan France at the center of everything that is going on in Cameroon today and in Ambazonia today. I think one of the things that the Ambazonian resistance has accomplished is to bring this reality to the open.
Yes. Let me. I want to just go back to that report for a moment. You know, they found a way to still interject that they were pursuing separatists. I don't see any other report that I said there were separatists in the area. Even some of the people that were interviewed, the villagers, it was a quiet night in their village. But somehow La République finds a way to still tell the lie that they were pursuing separatists.
The French are not yet ready to give the Ambazonian people their due. They are still playing games. They want to maintain Ambazonia as a colony, as we've discussed in the past. And that is why it is important that for Paul Biya to get a ticket to France, the price is the release of a Cameroonese politician and not stopping the killing of Ambazonia.
No, and not the release of Ambazonian political prisoners.
Prisoners.
Yes.
So what that tells you is that this confession is consistent, and the characterization of it with this idea that they were going to look for separatists is consistent with France's position, right?
Yes.
They want to maintain this colony, and I'm sure the technical advisors at the French, at the Cameroonese who work at the Cameroonese presidency say, you need to put that there. That's part of our policy. Part of our policy is to engage in this process to keep these people as our third-class citizens, as you put it so well the other day.
Still on that report, let me see if these were your family members. La République is saying that they will go and exhume the bodies and then give it proper burial. Wasn't that offensive to hear people of La République talking about proper burial when they have been going around burning people, shooting babies? These are not the first babies they shot. Why are they giving proper burial to this and what happens to the other three? The estimates go up to 14,000 that have been murdered. What happens to those? Didn't you find if that was your family, would you allow them to come and touch? Who gives a proper burial to their murdered family members? Is it the murderer?
The Cameroonese and their sponsors are schizophrenic. I believe during one of our discussions we talked about this. It's irrational. It's schizophrenic. We talked about how in Rwanda, in order to stem the spread of what Mitterrand at that time called the Anglo-Saxon hegemon, they went and killed 800,000 people who were largely French-speaking. And today Rwanda is an Anglo-Saxon country. It's a schizophrenic behavior. So it's how do you ask a normal person to rationalize that behavior is not a question that I can answer, other than to tell you that you're dealing with people who are mentally deranged and disturbed at that institutional level. That's the only thing I can say to that.
Let me bring you to on that report they also said that the vigilantes that they recruited and obviously have been supporting over time, that they've escaped. They don't know how to get hold of them. Do you believe that anybody is going to pay for the crimes. I mean, they feel hands because, you know, even though you're a field hand, when they send you to go and murder babies, you know that is wrong. You know that is wrong. So when you participate in it, yes, you do deserve to be punished. The question is, do we really believe that they will be punished? Because these are people who are doing things that they've been doing for 3 years, and right now they're being punished. Do you think La Republique risks losing control of the terrorists that they send into the territory?
I do not think they will be punished. I think it's a smoke and mirrors game. Again, as you said, this is not the first of its kind. At least I looked on the internet today, and somebody had listed all of the villages and the number of people that have been killed in each confrontation with these people.
They're close to 400 villages. 400.
Yes, and largely it's been confrontation between the Cameroonese army and defenseless civilians. It's not with armed fighters.
No.
So no, they're not going to be punished. I don't know if the guys who were quote unquote arrested after they executed the mothers and their children in northern Cameroon. I don't know if they've done a trial. Was the trial public? I don't know. So I think this will disappear into the ether after a few weeks, and people will have moved on to something else.
Terrence, let me tell you why.
It is our responsibility as native-born Ambazonians, or in some cases now as American citizens, to make sure that we engage in a process that these things are not forgotten. We have to stay on it.
Let me tell you why I think any type of remorse, any type of compensation that La Republique du Cameroun is talking about is smoke and mirror, like you said, because remember Semenge said it. Not only Semenge, remember that French pilot who reported how they used to go and kill the women, cut off their breath. I mean, these people have been trained to be gruesome. I mean, how many times can you kill somebody? How many times? It is said that they were trying to hide the bodies by burning them in Ngarbuh. I mean, this is what they do. It is not because they wanted to hide the bodies. They're not hiding the bodies because nobody is going to hold them responsible. The French have said they have been protecting La Republique. Oh, this behavior, the French have come out and said they have been protecting La Republique. So do you believe that they were hiding the bodies, or that's just... It's more trying to double kill a dead man, like Semenge said, and the French pilot testified. And you're talking over half a century now.
Yeah, the conduct of the Cameroonese at every level is absolutely irrational, and it's really hard to give rational answers to some of the things that they do and the things that they say. Just the fact that after the Ngarbuh massacre, a minister of communication makes this whole presentation on live television, right?
Yes.
With all of the trappings of his office, and then a few weeks later, the presidency comes and brushes him off and confesses.
Yeah, it is.
We are, and that's one of the issues that we have, that the Ambazonian people have. There is not a rational, sane person on the other side of the table to engage with.
No,
how do you so we have some ways to go, and that's why one of the lessons of this thing is that the Ambazonian people cannot negotiate with their slaughterers.
No, I mean, I think yeah, please go ahead.
And these Ambazonian people, right? Mm-hmm. These are people who occupy their land, which is a territory which never belonged to Cameroon or to France, which was a League of Nations mandated territory. that territory, it was a League of Nations mandated territory. It was a United Nations Trust territory, and it is only up to the Ambazonian people now. If there's anything that we can learn from Ngarbuh, which is only one in a long line of such massacres, is that the Ambazonian people must exercise sovereign control over that land,
yes,
over that territory, which was demarcated for them.
Yes.
Those are the lessons of Ngarbuh.
Yeah, another lesson that Ambazonians should learn is that all these gruesome murders is coming out of frustration, not just the training of La Republique, but also their frustration. They thought that, Paul Biya even, I think in his pronouncement, came across that they are going to take care of this really quick, isn't it? It's been 3 years and counting, and they haven't succeeded. And so they're lashing out. It's out of frustration. And I can tell you one thing to the Ambazonian. One of the things, talking about lessons, one of the lessons Ambazonians should learn, should understand in this is that La Republique always thought they had their military and that this military would do wonders for them. That is a magic weapon. And so when people like Joseph Weber lay a complaint to the authorities, they will ask him, "Qu'est-ce que vous allez faire? What are you going to do?" As they're saying that, they're holding their gun. They're looking at their army they've trained. They look at the French backing them. They're looking at all these colonial enforcers, and they're saying, "What are you going to do?" And I think if there's anything that the forces of La Republique do, including the recruitment of surrogates, they have been defeated. They have been defeated. And it's a proof that the human spirit or the determination of the Ambazonian people to finally take their own lives into their own hands, because they have, for the last century, it's been ruled by Germans, by English, by French. For over 100 years, it's ended up leaving the Ambazonian poor, destitute, and treated like animals in their own land. And right now they say, bring us death or give us death or give us freedom, liberty. Anything you want to add on that before I move to another topic, which is equally important, that I want you to give me a feedback on or an opinion on?
No, I think we've pretty much covered everything. I think the confession was nothing new to the Ambazonian people. We are not impressed. I think the lessons are there for us to learn. There is no possibility of us negotiating with the Ambazonian people negotiating with their slaughterers. There will have to be an international independent fact-finding mission to Cameroon.
Yes.
And those who are responsible for these crimes since 2016 must be brought to book. And the people of Ambazonia deserve the promise of the United Nations Charter.
Absolutely. Do you know that Gbagbo has been at the Hague for close to 10 years now for having done less than half of what Paul Biya has done in Ambazonia. So what's the difference between Gbagbo and Paul Biya? Why is Gbagbo in jail and not Paul Biya? There's one very important point that was mentioned in the Ngarbuh report, which I want to bring now. They promised that they were going to go build, is it 12,000 homes or something like that? And obviously the French ambassador not too long ago said they had 40 billion CFA to invest in Ambazonia. Now they're putting a condition on it, saying that they will not help build, put any money in Ambazonia until there's peace with the separatist fighters. Let me know. Let me hear what you think about that.
Let me first state that the French ambassador is within his rights, is within his command, as per the cooperation agreements that bind Cameroon to France. This French ambassador now bestrides the colonial periphery like a white peacock, and he is in full display and delight. You know, his feathers are trembling, and he's making all of these noises. You know, he goes to the Cameroonese public television and talk about the rule. He's almost as if, in the absence of their president, Paul Biya, he's now the commander-in-chief.
Okay, just hold your thoughts there, Terrence. Just hold your thought, because when you were saying that, I was smiling the whole time. Because I think you frame it exactly the way it is. Because in the cooperation agreements, it is written that whenever the Cameroon president is incapacitated, those are the words that they use, the French ambassador can take over. And I think you're just describing what happened, because I think it's the French ambassador right now going around talking about the coronavirus in Cameroon and then talk about rebuilding Ambazonia, isn't it?
Man, it is. I mean, if we're not living to see this in 2020, we wouldn't believe it.
It's unbelievable.
We wouldn't believe it. As I said, to use the word metropolitan France, it's really not an exaggeration. It's not an abstraction. It's a reality for the poor Cameroonese who have not even begun to fight like the Ambazonian people for their dignity, for their independence. In any case, let's go back to your question that you raised.
Yes.
Mr. French ambassador has no standing as far as Ambazonians, I believe, are concerned to offer any money or to offer any conditions for quote-unquote negotiations and then reconstruction. In the operations account in Paris, since they engulfed Ambazonia into the French periphery, they will have to account to every last penny of foreign reserves from Ambazonia that they have in those operations account. If they want to keep what they took from La Republique, they can keep it, and from other France-Afrique countries. But I believe that the Ambazonian people must insist on a forensic audit, and though that is the money, the blood money, we'll take it back. The Ambazonian people need to take it back.
It is blood money. It is blood money. Yes.
We will accept nothing. No, we'll take the blood money, we'll clean it up, and we'll reconstruct our lives.
No, it's our money. It's blood money because they killed us to take it. That's what makes it blood money for them. It's our money. It's not their money.
Yes. You know, since his supposed meeting with Paul Biya on the 16th of April, I mean, the man has been self-flagellating all over the place. It's incredible. And but as I said, one of the lessons that we've learned from this confession from Ngarbuh is that, you know, they have no standing in any negotiations with us, you know.
And all of this goes without... Please go ahead, continue.
When I speak of they, I mean I include the French and the Cameroonese as one party.
Well, what I wanted to highlight was that all of this is going out without any opposition from the people of La Republique. The French ambassador has totally become the president of La Republique du Cameroun, and nobody is saying anything about it. Nobody is questioning it. It sounds like it's normal.
Well, this is how far behind they are politically. The response to that has been a petition to have Macron replace the ambassador. That's as far as I know, that has been the response of the Cameroonese activists.
No, that was a replacement. this particular ambassador is a replaced ambassador from the first one not too long ago. I mean, is the question is the solution in replacing the ambassador or in redefining what relationship the French have with the humans in La République du Cameroun?
That is why I'm saying that they are so politically backward. They are so infantilized that their retort to this French ambassador bestriding in Yaoundé is to ask Macron to replace him.
No,
there's nothing about the essence of this relationship. There's nothing about. So they have a long way to go. The Francophone, the Cameroonese, the Francophones think that the solution to cooperation agreements is just is a human resources issue. You replace one person with the other. It's a stylistic issue. They are not even beginning to scrape the fundamental. You know, when Macron comes out and says, I instructed Paul Biya to release your opposition leader.
That's a very powerful statement from one head of state to another.
Yes. What does that tell the Cameroonese? Yeah, they are happy that, and I'm sure Mr. Kamto's family is happy that, dad is home, the husband is home, as will all be, as you at that level. But from a political perspective, what does that inform the Cameroonese people? That this man, the president of France, is on record as saying that in order for your current president to be allowed in my country, I give him a condition. Execute this demand. Release your fellow African. Then I'll let you in my white man's country.
Terrence,
it is absolutely humiliating and hilarious at the same time.
Yes, it was, but I don't think anybody sees that. Anybody in La République sees that. They've never known better, and somehow they've made it normal. It's the new normal from their Africanness. With this report and in the situation in Ambazonia and Ngarbuh, the British have never said anything. The UN came and wrote a report and asked Paul Biya to investigate. Let me ask you this, and I've been saying this, but I really want to get your opinion on this. I have always said that the Ambazonia was a country that was a territory that was programmed for independence. As late as 1958, the constitution was already drawn, and so the French and the people of La République du Cameroun are only beneficiaries. They are beneficiaries, and they're just holding to the gift that was given to them. And I think the French President President Charles de Gaulle actually came and said Southern Cameroon was a little gift from the Queen of England to France. So is it for Ambazonia and the French to say, okay, take back your gift, maybe because it's becoming really toxic right now, or is for the UN and the British to say, you know what, we made a mistake here, we need to correct that?
Under normal circumstances, what is normal circumstances these days? In a just world, we never would have become part of this whole mess with French Cameroon. In a fair world, the British should have stepped in. In an even fairer world, the United Nations would have stepped in. At times, I find it hard to describe where the United Nations begin and where Britain, France, or the United States begin. There's this line that is very blurry. But I know that the British, they have the military and diplomatic ability to
to stop this,
to do the justice for the Ambazonian people that they failed to do in 1960. And the reason I say this is because after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Cold War, the French came out with a policy paper in which they said their policy in Africa would be to expand to previously Anglo-Saxon, Lusophone Africa,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And I read this in Noir Silence. That's a book that started it all for me.
No, in 2001, the French actually published it as part of their policy. I remember reading it in 2001 that they are going to expand their boundaries to start taking that. They're not going to remain within the French colonial boundaries. They're going to expand into the Anglophone. And that's when they started inviting Mugabe and all these other Francophone, Anglophone leaders to come to Paris.
I think it was before then. I think immediately after the Cold War ended, when there was this wind of change and so on. After that hysteria, that paper was published, and I think they began to execute on that.
Yeah.
And they started doing that in West Africa, where they backed Charles Taylor, who was supported with Burkinabe and Ivorian forces, and he went into Liberia and took over the place. Many people may not know, but France is the only country in the world that gave Charles Taylor a state visit. Charles Taylor is now somewhere in The Hague. I think he's serving time for war crimes based on those conflicts. And then they expanded into Sierra Leone. There was a guy they called Foday Sanko that they backed, that Charles Taylor backed, and that the French backed, using their proxy states, Côte d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, and then obviously Liberia, that was within their grasp with the establishment of the Charles Taylor government.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, the British had decided that they had enough, and within a month they went into Sierra Leone and took out Foday Sanko and basically reestablished, the status quo ante. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I do know that they have the diplomatic and the military will if they want to do that. I mean, and they can do that unilaterally. But we have passed the stage where we expect generosity from any of these folks. And I think what is unfolding is that since 2016 is that, as you said the other day, live free or die fighting, right?
Absolutely.
Give me liberty or give me death, and that's what the people who inhabit that territory have decided to do. And the day that the slaves did not wait for William Wilberforce and the others, right?
No.
They started fighting immediately, so the day that another William Wilberforce will come and say, okay, these people deserve justice, well, we'll welcome them. But I think for now the Ambazonian people have taken the matter into their own hands.
Yes, and I just want to round this up by saying that there's a gentleman who's been putting out some papers on the Southern Cameroons. I call it Southern Cameroons because he goes all the way back to when that was the name of the territory, and he's saying that the place was too poor to be given independence, but too rich to be given its sovereignty. So you can see what is going on with our land and our people. It's lies, is ganging up and stealing because the amount of wealth. And he actually says that it's not only the natural resources of Ambazonia that are incredible, but the human resources. And so this is the time for Ambazonians because it is the human resources that will liberate the rest of the resources for the benefit of the people of Ambazonia as God intended. Anything else you want to add, my brother?
Yes, Yes, I just want to comment before we leave that there's been an acknowledgement, or kind of a shift, at least in terms of rhetoric, of the French position as at least verbalized by the current strongman in Yaoundé, the French ambassador there.
Okay.
Where Macron used to talk about the solution to the problem being what they call in French décentralisation approfondie, right?
Could you translate that?
You know what that means?
I was going to say you should translate it.
I don't know if I can get the right words, but it means, a deeper or a kind of more extensive decentralization, That was Macron's, that was the French prescription. As obviously as he allowed Paul Biya and the rest to carry out the massacres of our people, that was his prescription to solve the problem. Decentralisation approfondie, Mr. Ambassador came out recently and talked about, well, it may not be that, if you want to read into into these things, it may be that Yaoundé have to negotiate with the what he call the armed groups. So they are beginning to get some sense. There is a recognition of what happened when the Manu Tigers resisted them, when Biya sent his forces there on December of the 1st.
Yes.
2017.
Yes.
So they've come to recognize the Manu Tigers and all the other groups and the 7 Qatas, and all those brave Ambazonian boys and girls on the ground who have said enough is enough. So I think they are making some progress, but it is not up to the French. The negotiation will not be between Buea and Yaoundé. I think as a former trust territory, the United Nations will play a key role in removing the French and the Cameroonese from that territory, which was never theirs under any measure, and that will begin with the institution of an independent international fact-finding mission, because there will be no impunity for all of the crimes that they've committed against the Ambazonian people.
Well, my brother, thank you for sharing your experience and your reading, your analytical ability. It does help our people in synthesizing and understanding what's going on, and I think shows the way forward that our story is being talked about today everywhere because of what the Ambazonian people have done with their own blood, with their own talent, with giving themselves. It is the Ambazonian people who have I was going to say supplant, but the word is not supplant. It's the Ambazonian people who have let the whole world know that we do exist and that we are going to get what we deserve. And it's not by begging, because I think the past century has been begging and nothing came out of it now. So we will fight to the last man standing.